Hello, YouTube! I am Pinstar, and this is Old World Strategy and Tactics Quick Tips for Getting Started. So, in the period prior to the release of the game, I had been given a press key a bit early and had a chance to put in some hours in the game into my Babylon playthrough, and I learned some things, made some mistakes, and picked up on some stuff that might not be immediately apparent. So I'd like to pass these tips on to you. So, what did we do? Let's review. Tip number 1. When choosing your civilization here, I happen to go with Babylonia, and I was actually quite happy with that, but I'm not necessarily saying they're better than others. What you really, really want to pay attention to, the starting techs are not okay. Unique units are, well, I haven't gotten far enough to know how much of an impact they have, but what really has an impact are the families available to you. Yes, they're all going to have different names, but what's important is the moniker. See below the word Kassite where it says Hunters? Yeah, Babylon's not the only one with a Hunters family. If I remember correctly, who else has? So the Persia has Hunters as well. And the bonuses that the Hunters family gives to each of these civilizations are identical. So there is a little bit of mixing and matching that goes on here. No two civilizations have the exact same set of 4 families, and there are 8 in total. Now, as far as picking which civ you want to go with, and also which families within that civ you want to choose, because you can only use 3 of the 4 offered. My tip number 1, pick 1 or 2 families that have a terrain-dependent bonus, and at least 1 family that has a terrain-agnostic bonus. So let's take a look here at Babylonia. So the Hunters have a camps and nets at 100% output. That is terrain dependent. If a city site doesn't have campable or nettable resources, then this bonus is going to be wasted. But you don't have to found a hunter city everywhere. You can pick and choose. So if you happen to find a good campable site, Kassite family would be a good one. The Hunters would be a good one. Likewise, the traders here, luxury resources give us 2 extra civics. That's another resource dependent one. A site that has a lot of luxuries would do very well with the traders. Now, that's not to say that's the only bonus they offer you, but there's you can sort of utilize their tile bonuses a lot more if you pick the right spot. But what happens if you come across a city location that has neither camps nor luxury resources? That's where you want to pick one of the families that is a terrain agnostic, like the Sages here. The Sages family, all of their bonuses are based on your population or urban specialists, or being able to do inquiries and just getting flat bonuses. It doesn't necessarily care what the terrain is around the city. It'll do pretty darn well for itself. So if you ever so what you'll want to do is, for your 3 families, pick 1 or 2 that depend on the terrain, and then have at least 1 in reserve that doesn't, so that you can at the very least have someone make use of a city site that doesn't have the proper terrain that gets bonused for that. 2, the orders system takes a lot of getting used to, but you'll want to make use of them carefully. And the big thing with that is with your military units. Every military unit you move, by moving them around, it consumes order. By ordering them to attack, it consumes orders. Well, yes, you can spam a lot of cheap, disposable military units to sort of swarm and overwhelm your opponents. In this game, that's kind of penalized because the more units that you field, the more units you need to spend orders on to move into proper position. However, promoting units, if you have the resources for it, the training resources that is, will make them more potent, and you can also choose their improvements here. So that the same unit will, it still would only cost me one order, one set of orders or a certain amount of orders to move this unit around. But now this unit is bringing more power. So I am more efficiently using my orders militarily speaking. Orders are not just used for military, though. They also are used for your workers to order them into place and your scouts to go see what the Sam heck is going on. Like, for example, these barbarians that I should probably be worried about. Tip number 3 is that when you come across a city site, you do not have to settle on the tile that literally says city site. You can actually build your city on any of the tiles that have these little huts in them here. And when you go to do that, it will actually give you a preview of what your starting borders are going to look like, so you can see which important resources are encapsulated. Previously, I had just settled Mari here, and I saw that this location gave me the sheep here, the horses up here. It didn't quite give me the marble down here, but had I gone down one tile to get the marble, it would have cost me several of these resources up here. So I made that decision. So keep in mind your city placement. One other thing to keep in mind, and this was a mistake that I made in Akkad, when possible, put it next to a fresh water source. A city that is settled next to a fresh water source, like a lake or a river, like, say, Babylon here, will have a 20% bonus to growth. You can see that freshwater access. Whereas Akkad over here, which I foolishly settled one tile away from this lake, has no such growth bonus. It gets a bonus from the Hanging Gardens and from a bunch of other stuff, but I left the extra 20% bonus on the table. So be mindful where you put stuff. The topic of be mindful where you put stuff, not all tiles are created equal when creating resource gathering spots. For example, while yes, you could build a lumber mill on any of the forest tiles, did you know that lumber mills on rivers will get a bonus? Lumber mills next to camps get a bonus. Farmlands sit on this lush fertility. Land will get a bonus compared to some others. And of course, building things on top of bonus resources will give you bonuses on top of that. So keep an eye on your tooltips when you're building improvements, even if you're not necessarily just hooking up a specific resource, because there are some things that are better than others. If I were to build let's say, for example, if we take our worker here, if I were to build a lumber mill here, we can see on here the river is giving it a 60% bonus to our harvest rate, which is obviously much better than, for example, if we were to go to this forest way the heck over here and build the lumber mill. No bonus. Even though these are two forested tiles, just keep in mind what their bonuses are. Now here, they're giving me a hint here that this particular area might be a little bit better for farm, although it's not particularly better or worse for farm. The tooltips can be suggestions, but not be all end all. So just keep that in mind as you play. When building things in your city, the rate at which the things get built will depend very much on what is being built and what your city is producing. You can see on here there are 3 different categories: growth, training, and civics. This tells you at what rate your city is producing these 3 things, as well as the buildings and the projects that count under it. So, for example, if we wanted to build a settler, a worker, a scout, or a militia, these things would be built by and consume the city's excess food production, which is pretty decently high. Meanwhile, if we wanted to build some proper military units, that would depend on this area's training production, which is +8. We don't have any buildings that are giving it bonuses, so it's not that good of a producer at the moment. Then down here at civics, civics are what you use to build your infrastructure as well as hold special projects like festivals, councils, and what have you. Now, one interesting thing here is that the forum is an improvement that produces civics. All of these improvements are based on your civics production, so building the forum first is probably a good idea if you want to build up a bunch of other civics things related to the building. So keep that in mind, that that's how quickly a city can crank stuff out. And of course, it gives you yearly estimates to build any of those things. Let's hold some council. If you've conquered or secured a city site that you want to settle eventually and don't have the settler ready to actually claim it yet, what you'll want to do is to park a military unit on the city site. That essentially calls dibs. The AI will not settle a city site. As you can see here, I'm friends with Carthage, but I don't want Carthage to take either of these two city sites. They recently took this one, and I don't want them to expand into these two, but I don't want them to grab it and then provoke a war. Of course, if they really, really want that, they could come in, kill your military unit, and settle it anyway, but then you're at war anyway. So this is a way of politely saying, hey, this is my area, and they have to challenge your military unit for that. Earlier in my playthrough, I failed to keep a military unit on this city site, and the Greeks grabbed it from me. Of course, I grabbed this city site from them when they were about to settle it too, so turnabout is fair play. And lastly, when you are working off of a limited budget of orders, you'll want to prioritize what type of units you move. If you are in the middle of a war or a battle or fighting off barbarians, then it is absolutely critical that your initial orders go to moving and rearranging your military units to get them properly in position. In this particular case, we probably want to get these guys in here because these barbarians are looking not too happy with us. We're also probably going to want to grab any other military units nearby that might be important and available to help us. But again, we don't want to abandon our dibs callers. So perhaps these archers that we just upgraded, once they cool down from their promotion, might need to run over here. But I'd want to prioritize them. And then after you've moved your highest priority units, then you go about saying like, okay, this scout could probably do more scouting and I've got some leftover orders. So just keep that in mind, because you will not be always able to move every unit every tile it can. Just because a unit has a max, in this case for the scout, 4 moves to it, doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to have enough orders to order all of my scouts around. So just keep that in mind. So I hope these help you out in your initial foray into Old World. If you guys like these tips and you want to see more like it, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave me a comment, good, bad, or indifferent. Your feedback's always welcome. So until next time, this has been Pinstar, signing out. See ya!